Okay, a very warm welcome to our 111th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And we've been here every week for the last over a year now, where we've been examining a subject of central importance to the security sector. And the idea of thought leadership is that what we do is that we examine and critique and analyze what's going on today in order to get a better type of security tomorrow. Now, unusually, a bit of a twist this week, because we've organized this topic around a research study that's taking place, an IFPO research study about the complexity and role of security officers. How competent are they? It's taking place in Canada, Ecuador, India, Ireland, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, UK, and USA. Please, 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 if you know security officers who are out there working any of those countries, we want them to complete this survey. So we'll come back to you on that after the webinar. Today, specifically, the webinar is about how competent are security officers and why does it matter? And link to the IFPO, they're the sponsors of the study. Thank you very much indeed for your support. In a second, as usual, I'm going to introduce you to the three panelists, and as is our way, once they've all introduced themselves, I will then invite you, the audience, to ask questions. So they can make their opening statement, and then once they've done that, I will invite you, the audience, to ask questions. So without further ado then, let's go and meet our panelists. They're from different parts of the world, but first of all, from the UK, Yolanda. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, delighted to be here today. Thanks ever so much, Martin. My name's Yolanda. I'm currently the head of physical security for two government divisions, the HMLR and BASE. And I'm in that role on behalf of ISS. And you might know that ISS is a very large global blended services delivery provider, but I obviously represent the security division. I also sit on three boards. One is the IFPO board, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleagues Kevin and Mario internationally today. But I also am an ACES member, and I sit on a number of women in security and diversity and inclusivity boards as well. Thank you.
Yolanda, perfect. Thank you very much indeed. Well, from the UK over to Ecuador and Kevin. Kevin, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Martin. Well, at the time I'm based in Latin America, so good morning to everyone. My name is Kevin Palacios. I've been in the security industry for 22 years now. At the time, I hold all of IFPO's certifications and all of ASIS international professional certifications. I dedicated a great portion of my professional and academic career to the study of security officers' competency. Currently, I'm the vice chair of the board in the International Foundation for Protection Officers and responsible for the development of IFPO's activities in Spanish language.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. And then over to the United States then to meet our third panelist, Mario. Mario, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Martin, and welcome everybody. My name is Mario Doyle. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Doyle Security Services based in the USA. We're an organization that provides security services across the nation. And in addition to my role at Doyle Security, I also serve as the Assistant Regional Vice President for ASIS International, which is the entire downstate region of New York, which is the largest region in the US. In addition to that, I also serve as the chairman for the New York branch of the Terrorist Information New York Group, better known as Tiny G. A very big fan of IFPO, an organization that has continued to add value to the development of security officers. And I thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's webinar. Back to you, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, Mario. Well, as you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, a very prestigious panel once again. And I know many of you write to me and say how good we are at getting good panelists. So without further ado, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to now listen to their opening statements. 3 minutes where each of the panelists get a chance to say what they want to about this topic. So without further ado, then let's go to Yolanda. And Yolanda, your opening statement, please.
Thanks, Martin. I think we have to look at how competent security officers are in relation to the word competent. Competent tells us that you're looking at a degree of knowledge, the application of that knowledge, and also the ability of the individual. And we all know that there are going to be varying amounts of abilities across all of the staff that work across the security industry. I represent primarily the man guarding sector, and I can tell you that we don't have it right. Not yet, but I think there's a very, very good and strong continuing momentum to ensure that we enable as many individuals as possible to learn in their roles, to become better. Because if they aren't competent, we are only as strong as the individual who has the weakest amount of training and application in their role. And so therefore, that's what we are mitigating against all the time. That one individual that may not have their eye on the ball, the one individual that didn't sign off the updated risk assessment, that one individual who isn't really interested in what's written in our site-specific instructions, and the individual who declined the opportunity to attend training given where they had the opportunity to do so. So that's what we are mitigating against all the time. So I think if we can show good leadership, show the opportunities that are available to individuals, mitigate against the risk, always strengthening the posture that we put in place for our clients, we're on a journey that can only improve and can only get better. But I remember having a conversation with Mike Hurst only recently, and he reminded me of this really important phrase, which I shall say and then hand back to you, Martin. He said to me, what happens if I train somebody and they leave? And we've all had this. What happens if I don't train someone and they stay? Whoever created that deserves a round of applause. It's a very powerful statement, and it reminds us all the time of the importance of training. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Some really good points there, and I'm sure we'll return to some of those. Just to say to the audience, don't forget question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. If you get your questions in early, we'll endeavour to incorporate them in the ensuing discussion. Without further ado then, let's hear our second opening statement, and it's from Kevin. Kevin, your opening statement, please.
I'd like to start by quoting my colleague, Chris Herdig. He mentioned a long time ago that private security officers are the forgotten soldiers of an invisible empire. They are on the front lines of homeland security, public war against crime, and the private efforts against waste, accidents, errors, crime, and unethical practices. They prevent countless tragedies, yet they get ridiculized rather than getting the reserve recognition. Normally, security officers, private security officers are far less trained, less paid, and less equipped than the public security counterparts, yet we outnumber them everywhere in the world. More private security officers are injured and killed in the line of duty every year than public security professionals, mainly due to their lack of competency. In a world of globalized risks, criminals evolve and criminals do specialize. They are great at networking. They adopt their best practices almost immediately. The crime career is an organized competency-based hierarchy. So if someone dares to skip a step and commits a disruptive act at a level he has not already achieved, they simply get caught. Yeah. On the other hand, many security professionals, sadly, they see their professional development as something very static. There is general ignorance about the existence of progressive levels of applied security professional competency. Protecting people, information, properties, and reputation is perhaps one of the most delicate tasks that exist. It demands specific knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So it will be competencies which are essential to possess as a whole, as an integrity. Yeah, a person that is trained incompletely or inadequately constitutes a much greater risk since it creates the illusion of protection. Yeah. Sadly, a great portion of the problem comes from within the same industry, the security industry. Sometimes due to ignorance, convenience, or selfishness, the many people, many managers especially believe that there's no need to invest in training or to evaluate the competency of their employees. Um, the security industry, as far as the private security officers, they are organized in a pyramid structure at operational, tactical, strategic level. The largest importance in my point of view and if because we are here for the protection officers, is that the more important part of this pyramid is at the bottom. Yeah, the frontline officers, the people that do the field work. And indeed, my organization, well, IFPO, we advocate a phrase which is knowledge is needed to protect. Yeah, this will be all.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. Excellent. And once again, excellent points we'll come back to in the ensuing discussion. Don't forget, some have already started. Get your question in on the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll endeavour to come to it once we've heard from our third and final opening statement. Mario, can we hear from you, please?
Thank you, Martin. And again, I definitely agree with my colleagues. And when we talk about the U.S. market, I'm a strong believer that security officers are undervalued. And they're undervalued because of the fact that a lot of what they do every day to contribute to public safety is not recognized as if it would be in another industry. Another issue that kind of plagues the U.S. market is security officers, their roles are more a job rather than a career. And I think what needs to change, and what we're continuing to advocate to change, is making a security officer position a professional position. Now, how do you do that? And I mean, that comes with the right wages, the right training, the right benefits. I mean, it takes the community embracing security officers just like they do law enforcement officers. As we know, 85% of the US critical infrastructure is in private hands. And when you talk about competence, I mean, that's a major statement. Again, we sleep well at night because of the fact that we have security officers and law enforcement officers that are on the front line every day. I always use this analogy. Organizations, multi-million, multi-billion-dollar organizations, trust their security officers to protect their facilities. If you look at this pandemic and what we've been through globally over the last year and a few months, it's security officers and law enforcement officers that have been on the front lines. They're the ones that have been protecting these facilities. They are the essential workers. And how do we continue to recognize them? How do we continue to develop them? And how do we continue to ensure that the world sees them as true professionals? Again, there's a broad spectrum in security. I mean, you've got your critical infrastructure and you've got your basic access control posts. We all realize that. But again, I think as a industry, we need to ensure that the work that's being done on the front line every day is recognized. There's enough value put into the training and the development to make security officers competent. I think there's a wide spectrum. There's highly trained, and there are people that have put on a uniform and have just finished their basic training, pre-assignment training. So there's a wide gap, and we need to narrow that and make it a more professional position as an industry. That's all I have, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Look, three excellent opening statements, plenty of points to go on. So without further ado, let's get the discussion going. And Yolanda, I'll come to you first, if I might. And a question from Bipin Patel. And one of the things that Bipkin's asking about is with the emergence of technology. But anyway, what is it we should be valuing about secure? What's good about security that should make us value them as something special, rather than perhaps just someone who walks around in a uniform? Yolanda first, and then I'll come to Kevin second. Yolanda.
Thank you. I mean, look, we've got some outstanding individuals, certainly working for ISS, and in some of the other organizations I've worked for, we've gone a long way to try and recognize the efforts of individuals who are in very isolated and quite lonely roles, recognizing them with awards and recognition for outstanding achievement. And I notice now, with the help of social media, Twitter and LinkedIn, that there's a far, far greater movement now. And in recognizing each individual's outstanding performance, we are going a long way to publicly raising the brand of our security professionals who are out there on the front line doing an absolutely amazing job. Now, if only everybody was like that, but not everybody is. So we have a motivation to try and work on that sector of our staff, to maybe even entice them, tease them, to look at broader horizons. You know, I've had senior managers say to me in the past, you know, we need our bread and butter security officers, the ones that, you know, don't really aspire to do much, because if they were all aspirational and hungry for success, we would very rarely be able to keep a very static, consistent team in place on our clients' locations. So to a degree, you know, we don't want everybody to be aspirational, but at the same time, I think we should definitely harness the aspirations of people where there's a flicker of, you know, wanting to do better and make improvements. On the flip side, though, I do an awful lot of recruiting. And when I recruit, one of the questions I ask security officers who apply for jobs is, do you understand what the current threat level is in the UK? And I am shocked sometimes that they don't know the answer, even if they're currently in soft target locations where they should absolutely know the current threat status. So I'm a strong advocate of all the great work we're doing, but also I think we have a lot more work to do.
Okay, very good. Kevin, I'll come to you then, Mario. Kevin, one of the things that I want to try and get to here, Kevin, is what is difficult about being a security officer? What are the things that we should recognize as being, well, that's worthy of respect, that's worthy of recognition for being different? Kevin, then Mario. Kevin first.
Well, the first thing is that security officers, they have a very broad level of responsibilities. Modern protection officers, they not only look against crime within the companies, they have to be aware of signs for waste, yeah, for instance, accidents, yeah, errors, as well as unethical practices and professional practices. So when we see this, we will then realize that the protection officer needs to have a very present, yeah, so being here and now, yeah, state of mind to be able to identify all of these very subtle suspicion indicators, yeah, and be very proactive, yeah, on checking if those indicators account to a proper actual threat, yeah. The security officer therefore has a very big needs a very big mental discipline and needs a good communicational skills. Also, a lot of teamwork is needed in order to have a proper run security operation. And as I stated before, yeah, this is a profession. I agree with what Mario said. In many cases, they don't see themselves, or we don't see security officers as professionals. We see them as just people performing a function, yeah, for a temporary time, really. While the security industry, well, is, as I said before, a pyramid, and security officers should be able to progress, yeah, in this pyramid, yeah, from a very operative or operational type of duties into a more tactical, yeah, supervisory type of duties, up to even a strategic level of duties.
Very good, thank you, Kevin. Mary, let me come to you then. Similar point. I'm trying to build on what Kevin says, and I get Kevin's point that there's perhaps more to this than meets the eye. And I suppose it's a matter how we might begin to articulate. Your point is inform, raise awareness, make people more cognizant of what's going on. But I suppose the point is about what? What is it that's so special? What is it that we've got something to hang on here and we can say, this is different, this is special? Mario.
Martin, one of the things I tell colleagues and clients is you've got to look at how important is your brand. You know, think about the millions and billions organizations spend to protect their brand. And who is protecting that brand? It's usually a security officer. That's the front line. That's the first person that a visitor, an employee, an individual sees when they visit a facility. So, you know, how important is your brand? And to invest in your brand, you got to invest in your frontline security officers. Again, I go back to the point, and you touched on technology for a while. For probably, I would say, you know, the last decade or two, we've seen companies continue to invest in technology and try to eliminate the man guarding position. My mantra, and I tell people, the best programs are a combination of the best technology and the best people, because we have seen, okay, we have seen globally when they've had major events, whether it be an earthquake, whether it be a major weather event, where you've got loss of power. You know, again, that technology now is useless. Yes, you've got some backup and redundancy set up, but for a long-term event, you need people. You need people that are trained. You need people that are loyal. You need people that are dedicated. You know, you expect, I mean, I touched on the pandemic earlier. We expect our security officers to continue to be at work while senior executives are working remotely. You know, again, we expect security officers to continue to protect the facilities. How do you do that? And I mean, we invest millions and billions of dollars in business continuity. But again, who's protecting the facility that contributes to your business continuity? Again, I think those are things that we need to continue to drill into the mindset of the individuals that purchase security services. You can't look at, I tell individuals, you want, when it's the contract security sector, I'm gonna use that as an example. When it's the contract security sector, you don't want a vendor. You want a mission critical partner. And if you don't treat that organization, that contract security organization, as a mission critical partner, you're wasting your money, no matter what you're spending. Because when you treat them as a vendor, you're treating them as an outsider rather than an integral part of the organization.
Okay, really good. So we're building up a case here. Now, let me tell you some of the barriers here. I'm going to come to you first, Kevin. And it's a question from Dennis Shep, actually. And Dennis often contributes thinking on this, based in Canada. And Kevin, one of the points he's making is that the very name manned guarding, which has already cropped up in this webinar, undermines attempts to portray the industry in a positive light. And yet that word is a word that's used all over the world. Do you agree with Dennis that that's a problem, Kevin?
Certainly, that is a big, well, that will be the beginning of several issues. If you hire a person and you just tell him or her just to stand in the corner and guard or watch out for 8, 10, 12 hours to see if that nothing happens, yeah, then you basically are wasting, yeah, a lot of opportunities, a lot of actual man brain power. And you also demotivate the person, yeah, because I guess everyone who is in this meeting will agree that just standing in a position without a proper actual a role or understanding what the benefit of its function is should be a very demotivational position. So the whole idea behind IFPO is to actually create a different level. Yeah, we actually call them protection officers. Yeah, and when we understand that the task that a protection officer has to do is a lot more open, a lot more varied than just being on the lookout for nothing to happen, opposed to be able to properly identify these suspicion factors that will create waste, accident, error, crime, and unethical practices. Should be able to report, yeah, to communicate, yeah, to have these proper, yeah, reporting to supervisors, to the public, to the client, and to be able also to think and eventually act according to certain procedures and policies. Then we will see a whole different situation. Yeah. Then we start with more motivation, and we basically create a better value added service to our clients.
Okay, very quickly, just yes or no if you can, Kevin. Are you in favor, are you against calling the industry manned guarding? Is that a problem to you?
Totally against, totally against. They
Okay.
should be called private security officers or private security professionals.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Yolanda, let me come to you here. And I want to just build on this with a question. And Peter Herwig has made the observation about guards, and Matthew Porcelli has built on this with this question. The stereotype of the guard is so strong that many frontline security officers and those young folks going into the security field become disillusioned and feel complacency with the word guard and what it portrays. Yolanda, do you agree guard is a bad word? And do you find that in your own recruitment strategies, which you spoke about in your opening statement?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the word guard is very old, it's antiquated, and I don't think it really speaks of the current position of certainly UK contract security. And I think even now, you know, we are still rebranding concierge security to make receptionists SIA trained so that it builds an extra layer of security posture in that front office area where everybody can work with the same skill set but have a different functionality. I think a lot of people will stand behind me and say 100% guard has to go. Even now, I had to correct some documentation earlier on this morning and change the word guard to security officer. And I think by doing that, we professionalize our own people. But let's say this. Years ago, I had a client say to me once, oh, you know, the black officer, what's his name? And I just thought, no, if he didn't say the black officer, he said the black guard, I apologize. And I said to the client, look, his name is Bob. Let's call him Bob for the sake of this exercise. I would rather they call them their name rather than call them their job title as well. If a client understands and knows the names of everybody who's working on their site, it makes for a far, far better collegial kind of work ethic rather than the separatist kind of security officer, security guard, you know, client. So that's what I'm working for all the time. Let's know their names and let's use them.
Okay, and just on Dennis Shep's question, manned guarding, in favor or against? Yolanda.
Oh, manned guarding. Well, I tend not to use that terminology as well, but I have to say I feel very inspired by Mario's vernacular today. Mission critical partner is something I'm now going to be saying from now on. So thank you, Mario.
Very, very good. Okay, Mario, I want to just ask you very, very briefly about this because I want to come to you on a different question, if I might, Mario, move it on. But just very, very briefly, Mario, the use of the word guard. Now, in some parts of the world, we've got no choice because security officer means a different thing. And but Mario, your view on the word guard, is it problematic in your life? Very briefly, Mario, because I want to ask you a different question.
Yes, it's problematic. It's demeaning. To me, it's more a security officer or a security professional, because that's who they are. They're professionals. And if
okay. Okay, really good. I want to come to you with a different question. So I want to move this on. We've got lots of questions coming in from Glenn Kitteringham, who's done a PhD on security officers and training. And he says, of all the panelists have placed the onus on officers for the current low level of training. There was no acknowledgement of the role of government, clients and guard companies playing all this. Government could write the legislation, clients could demand better trained officers, and the guard companies or companies employing these officers could institute training. Why are we not taking them to task, Mario? Why are we not?
It boils down to dollars and cents. If you want to get to the nitty gritty as to why it's not a professional industry, it's dollars and cents. Again, I think every one of us that are on this webinar are professionals, right? We want to elevate our industry, but again, it can't be done by a small group of individuals. The industry needs to unite behind security officers. The industry needs to professionalize itself, because too often, and I've seen it quickly in some of the comments, we blame customers for the fact that the wages are as low as they are. They're a part of the problem, but I would also say the industry contributes to that. If you continue to bid work at low wages, that's where the industry is going to stay. It's CEOs, it's organizations coming together to say it's time to professionalize this business. I really thought, and I'll speak for the US end, that after 9/11, we'd see some serious advancements in security officers' wages and the role they played. You look at the lives they saved in New York on 9/11. Security officers contributed to that. Again, the recognition that the law enforcement and the fire rescue and the life safety individuals got weren't as much as were more than what the security officers get. Again, so as an industry, it takes webinars like this, it takes us as a group to continue to elevate them. You take professional networks like LinkedIn, it's recognizing them, it's telling their stories. It's continuously talking about the value they add when it comes to public safety and life safety.
The question is, Mario, I suppose, and this is behind Glenn's question, if it's important role, why aren't the government at least writing minimum standards that are higher status around the world? And why are clients not prepared to pay more for ensuring they get the type of service that you want? Very brief, because I want to come to Kevin and Yolanda on the same question.
Well, again, on the government end, you need the private sector, you need an organization to advocate for that legislation, right? Again, that legislation is not going to get written unless you have an industry that supports it and pushes for it. Again, you've got states in the US that don't even require security officers to be licensed. Okay, there's states that have great licensing standards, great background checks, great training. There's others where you can take a guy off the street and put him to work. Okay, and it falls back on the employer. So to answer your question, again, I started with saying it all boils down to dollars and cents, okay, because that's the root cause of the problem. But it takes an industry to legislate to the elected officials to raise these standards. And in accordance with raising the standards, we need to raise the wages and ensure that this becomes a career position rather than a job between now and when they find their career.
Okay, so Kevin, let me come to you on this. And here's where we're getting to, that the industry needs to take more responsibility for presenting its case, I suppose, to clients, of course, but also to government. Would you agree with that, or is there another way out of this? And Yolanda, I'll come to you afterwards.
Fully agree with Mario's position. The industry needs to take a step and create the standards, about the professionalization of security officers, as well as evaluation of security officers.
But why is it failed, Kevin? Sorry to interrupt you, Kevin. Why is it failed then? Why are we not there already?
I would say again, there is a matter of or a fear of increasing the value, the cost of people by investing more in them. Yeah, and yeah, the security industry is pretty much intentionally trying to keep security officers at the lowest possible level of pay and at the lowest possible cost. So training is a cost, and therefore the less pay, the less training, well, will somehow this idea. Opposites, I have said, us will be very much finding or championing the idea that we need to align the contract security officers with the in-house security departments under the reality of the enterprise security risk management needs. So when you talk about having the security officers as mission critical partners, yeah, that's an interesting phrase. Then we will get to see the advantages of having people that are better recognized, better trained, better paid.
Okay, I get that. But Yolanda, here's the point. There is a sense, isn't there, in which when you look at this critically, the truth of the matter is the security sector itself is responsible for its own problems it finds itself in. So the lack of professionalism, it seems, is due to it not getting its act together, not presenting its case in any way in a unified sense, not being aggressive enough in its awareness raising, and being too self-interested, presumably for the profit motive, to enable progress to be made. Yolanda, that's the problem, isn't it?
It could be good to say that I think you're both right and wrong there, Martin, because I've got 4 points to cover here. The first point is the government. The government have introduced some pioneering counterterrorism legislation. I'll just put my teeth in, right? It's called Protect. Now, there have been a lot of people behind this. How has it been possible in today's times of climate, of threats in relation to counterterrorism, that you have to have legislation around what food is served and how many portaloos there are in an event, and yet there isn't anything around protecting people? So a great move with the government coming up their end with great legislation that we can all follow, and it's great guidance. Then you've got the SIA, the Security Industry Authority. They have now made it harder still for somebody to just come off the street and walk into a jacket, as many people criticize. There's now specific health and safety legislation that has to be, included along with anybody getting a renewal of a license. And those changes came into effect both in April and in September this year. So this goes some way to professionalizing the security individual working anywhere with a security license. Then you look at the private sector. Private sector know that to win business from credible, well-paying, good branded clients, that they have to make a bid that somewhat sells trading into the USP delivery. No one anymore, certainly that we're dealing with at ISS, wants to deal with an organization that isn't going to invest in its employees. So it really does come down to the qualitative element, taking the lead, setting the benchmark for everybody else to follow. Because if you do want cheap and dirty, that's what you tend to get. And let's look at the collegial element. We now know that several security organizations are working together in forums to bring about great change. So actually, I think that's great evidence to show how we're working together, how the government is supporting us, and how our legislative body, the SIA, is doing its bit. However slowly, they're still doing their bit.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I want to move on if I can, and I'm going to come to Kevin first. Brief answer, if you wouldn't mind, Kevin, because I want to get Mara when we're running out of time. Charlotte Howe says, does security officers with additional tasks that are not security related, cleaning, watering the plants, does that help illustrate that they are versatile and value, or does it undermine their expertise as security professionals? Brief answer, Kevin, please. I want to get Mara in as well. We're running out of time. Kevin.
Yeah, that will certainly undermine their value, that will undermine their importance, and that will certainly take away their time, concentration, and efforts to what they should do, which is basic loss control activities.
Okay, thank you. Mario, do you agree?
Absolutely. It undermines the business. A security professional should be just focused on security and life safety. that's their primary function. That's what they're hired for. That's what they're employed to do, and that's the only thing that they should be focusing on.
And I think the thing is, Mario, presumably it's wanting to appease the client, isn't it? Though the client says we're paying you, you'll do what we say, or companies understandably want to win the next contract. They need to please the client. I mean, you can see why people slip this route.
Absolutely, and it goes back to the point I made earlier. Those are the clients that treat the companies like vendors and not mission critical partners. But again, the company also needs to ensure that they articulate and demonstrate the value and the risk associated with a security officer watering the plants and doing cleaning related responsibilities. Because again, at the end of the day, what's the risk that's created when the security officer is not focused on his role? And I think you have to demonstrate that to the customer and let them own that risk. And once nobody wants to own the risk, at that point, they'll find somebody else to water the plants and do the cleaning, because they realize they've now inherited that risk if they want the security officers to perform those roles.
Okay, and very quickly, Yolanda, just 20 seconds from you. Doing other tasks. Do you want your security officers doing other tasks to please the client? Please you?
Nothing that would deviate them from their perfunctory role, which is the security role, the same as my colleagues there. And I think we've got an obligation to challenge any of those requests with the client directly. But let's face it, we all want to work with clients that respect and value the service that we're offering, and hopefully they wouldn't want to compromise the service delivery in that way.
Okay, thank you very much, panelists. We're running out of time. I've got one question for you each. It's a difficult question, and you've only got 20 seconds each to answer it. If you could strategically do one thing to change the industry to increase the competence of security officers, what high-level strategic thing would you be suggesting we do that could have the most dramatic effect? Kevin?
Certainly to have a greater understanding and knowledge on what the roles and functions of a security officer are. Yeah, and by knowing that and making it public and letting everyone know that what a security officer is supposed to do, then we will stop deviating their effort or their concentration to other tasks.
Okay, thank you. Mario, what would you do?
I would continue training and continued recognition of the value that they add every day. Again, I think the image needs to be changed from a night watchman to a security professional, because that's where the industry started. But today, they're security professionals and need to be recognized as such.
Thank you very much. A final word to you, Yolanda. 20 seconds if you wouldn't mind. What would you do?
I think the best layer to go for is the management layer that's managing the front line. When you inject enthusiasm that may have withered away, and you can install that level of purpose into that individual and just keep that maintenance of that energy at that level, that is where we make the most effect. That's where most of the effort goes in. That's where I would focus.
Panel, thank you so much for your time. We've run out of time. I was saying to you before we started, it goes quickly, doesn't it, just when you're enjoying yourself? But listen, I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions, and I know you've been very active on the chat button as well, but we will be returning to this subject matter. Most of all, if I could encourage you, please, if you're responsible for security officers in any way, a security officer, you can influence those that do, please encourage them to complete our survey. We'll send you the link afterwards just to reinforce it, but the more we can get their views on their role, the more that we can offer an insight across the world. Just a few final thoughts, if I might, very, very quickly, just to say the Outstanding Security Performance Awards entries are open in Kenya, Romania, and the United States. The Tackling Economic Crime Awards are open in the UK. The Cyber Oscars are also open. Look at all those supporting associations around the world here. If you know a cyber security association not there, let us know. They probably don't know how they can be involved in a worldwide recognition of those who are good at cybersecurity. Finally, to say that we normally come back on a Thursday, but this week it's Wednesday. We're back tomorrow, same time, when the topic is drones and security, balancing the threat with the opportunity. So we heard a lot about drones on previous webinars. We'll be examining what's good about them tomorrow. So I hope you'll join me then. Thank you once again to my panel. Thank you to you, the audience, for your questions, which were absolutely extraordinary. Don't forget, a copy of my blog about this webinar and a recording to watch it all over again will be on the website tomorrow. Thank you in the background to Christine Brooks and Hannah Miller. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. I'd like to think it'll be same time tomorrow. But until we do, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.